There is an absolute, undisputed law of nature that has terrified coastal civilizations since the dawn of humanity. The ocean cannot be contained. When a massive oceanic disturbance, a violent subduction zone earthquake, or a Category 5 hurricane strikes, it generates a wall of water so colossally heavy that no human structure should logically be able to survive its impact. The sheer kinetic energy of billions of gallons of rushing sea water moving at the speed of a jet airliner can easily pulverize concrete buildings, tear up deep industrial foundations, and swallow entire cities in a matter of minutes. For decades, global superpowers have watched this destructive force with a sense of helpless dread, accepting coastal destruction as an inevitable tax levied by the planet. But along the highly vulnerable, low-lying coastal plains of Texas, home to one of the most critical energy and petrochemical corridors on the planet, the United States government has decided to launch a counteroffensive. They have initiated a monumental $60 billion industrial campaign to build the most ambitious, complex, and expensive storm and tsunami defense system in human history. Officially known as the Coastal Texas Protection Project, but colloquially feared by the global engineering community as the Ike Dike, this project calls for the construction of a colossal, floating tsunami-grade barrier system stretched directly across the deep water entrances of the Gulf of Mexico. This is not a simple concrete dike, an earthen levee, or a localized seawall. This is a massive, multi-tiered network of giant floating gates, heavy-duty seawalls, and colossal artificial sand dunes designed to literally lock down the ocean on command, changing the physical geography of the American coastline forever. To understand the absolute, terrifying necessity of this $60 billion project, one must look directly at the unique geographic vulnerability of the Galveston Bay and Houston Ship Channel region. This area is not just a highly populated metropolitan zone. It is the beating, industrial heart of the United States energy sector. It contains massive, complex oil refineries, chemical manufacturing plants, and strategic petroleum reserves that supply a massive portion of the nation's liquid fuel. The entire region sits on incredibly flat, low-lying land that rises barely a few feet above sea level. When a massive storm surge or a tsunami-level wave is funneled into the narrow mouth of Galveston Bay, the water has nowhere to go. It acts like a giant hydraulic ram, squeezing millions of gallons of water into a tightening funnel and forcing a catastrophic, towering surge straight up the industrial channel. If a direct hit from a Category 5 storm or a massive oceanic event pushes a 20-foot wall of water into this industrial corridor, the result would be an apocalyptic environmental and economic disaster. Massive storage tanks filled with toxic chemicals would be ripped from their foundations, releasing millions of gallons of oil and hazardous material directly into the sensitive marine ecosystem, while simultaneously crippling the global supply chain. The physical aftermath would trigger a national security crisis, blacking out power grids across the country and contaminating vital freshwater aquifers for generations. To prevent this national security catastrophe, engineers had to design a structure that could survive the absolute worst-case scenario, a once-in-a-hundred-years ocean surge of immense height, velocity, and unrelenting hydrostatic pressure. The physical dimensions of this megaproject are so massive they sound like pure science fiction. The entire defensive line stretches over a staggering length of more than 70 miles along the coast, integrating a massive double-tiered system of artificial sand dunes, land-based gates, and deep-sea barriers. The dunes themselves are a triumph of soft engineering, rising to a height of up to 14 feet above sea level and stretching for miles along the sandy beaches of Galveston Island and the Bolivar Peninsula. They are designed to absorb and break the initial, violent kinetic energy of the ocean waves before they can reach the population centers. But the true, mind-bending crown jewel of this $60 billion fortress is the Bolivar Roads Gate System, a massive, deep-water opening spanning nearly 2 miles across the shipping channel. This is where the ocean is at its deepest and most violent, and this is where the world's largest floating gate system must be installed. To keep this vital shipping lane open for international commerce during normal times, the gates must remain completely open and hidden beneath the waves. But when the warning sensors detect an incoming tsunami or extreme storm surge, These colossal steel structures must rise, swing shut, and completely seal off the bay from the entire Gulf of Mexico. The construction of this deep-sea barrier system is an absolute nightmare of marine logistics, demanding the mobilization of the world's most massive dredging vessels, heavy-lift crane barges, and specialized offshore construction equipment. You cannot build a massive concrete and steel wall in the middle of a deep, fast-flowing shipping channel without completely halting the global economy. Every day the channel is closed costs hundreds of millions of dollars in lost trade. To overcome this, engineers are constructing the massive floating gates in dry docks miles away, forging colossal steel hollow hulls that behave exactly like heavily armored industrial submarines. These gates are fabricated using ultra-high-strength steel plates, welded together by automated robotic systems, and inspected using advanced ultrasonic testing to ensure there are zero micro fissures in the welds. When finished, these gates will be towed out into the channel and positioned directly over massive, prefabricated concrete foundations sunk deep into the ocean floor. The installation of these underwater foundations is a brutal process of continuous marine excavation. Huge cutter suction dredgers, equipped with massive rotating cutter heads lined with tungsten carbide teeth, must bore deep into the shifting sands of the sea floor, removing millions of cubic tons of sediment to expose a stable geologic layer. This slurry is sucked up through massive pipes and deposited miles away to build up the protective dune systems. Once the trench is carved, massive floating crane barges drop colossal precast concrete blocks, each weighing thousands of tons, directly into the deep water abyss. To secure these massive blocks against the relentless, pulling force of the ocean currents, heavy-duty hydraulic piling hammers drive thousands of high-tensile steel piles deep through the concrete blocks and straight into the subterranean crust of the earth, pinning the foundation permanently to the ocean floor. These piles must penetrate over 100 feet into the clay and bedrock to resist the immense lateral forces that will try to slide the entire foundation during a major storm surge event. The engineering mechanics behind the floating gate system are a masterclass in extreme hydraulics and physics. The system features two massive sector gates, each measuring an incredible 650 feet in length, long enough to span the length of two full-sized football fields. These gates are designed as hollow, buoyant steel wedges that rest in deep, concrete recesses built on either side of the shipping channel. During normal operations, the gates are filled with air, allowing them to float effortlessly just inside their dry recesses, completely out of the way of passing mega-container ships. But when the emergency lockdown command is initiated, massive hydraulic pumps open flood valves, allowing seawater to pour into the hollow compartments of the gates. As the weight of the water destroys their buoyancy, the massive steel structures sink slightly, aligning with heavy-duty underwater track systems. Colossal hydraulic push rods, powered by multi-megawatt electric motors and backed up by emergency diesel generators, then slowly swing the giant, 600-foot steel wedges out into the center of the roaring channel. When the two gates meet in the middle, they form a massive, upward-pointing V-shape. This geometry is a stroke of structural genius. The immense, crushing force of the incoming tsunami or storm surge pushing against the gates actually forces them tighter together, transferring the colossal load laterally into the massive concrete foundations anchored deep in the seafloor. The ocean itself is used to lock the gate. To prevent the high-pressure water from simply eroding the ocean floor beneath the gates and causing a catastrophic structural blowout from below, engineers must lay a massive, heavy-duty protective blanket across the seabed. This process, known as scour protection, involves deploying specialized rock-dumping vessels that meticulously drop millions of tons of graded armor stone and heavy concrete mattresses directly onto the seafloor around the gate structures. This massive rock barrier prevents the violent, high-velocity currents flowing under the gate from washing away the supporting sand and undermining the foundation. Simultaneously, adjacent to the massive floating sector gates, engineers are building a series of vertical lift gates and environmental barrier walls. These auxiliary gates are designed to remain open to allow the normal, critical exchange of tidal waters and marine life between the bay and the open ocean, preserving the sensitive coastal ecology. But during a crisis, These massive steel vertical panels, suspended from towering concrete monoliths rising over 100 feet into the air, are mechanically dropped into the water, forming an unbroken, impenetrable $60 billion steel wall that stretches from horizon to horizon, completely separating the bay from the fury of the storm. As the physical construction progresses, the sheer scale of the engineering challenges continues to multiply. Working in open water means battling the constant, unpredictable movement of the sea. Waves of over 10 feet can stall construction for days, and the threat of an active hurricane season means that any unfinished structure must be heavily secured at a moment's notice. To manage this risk, the construction fleet relies on highly advanced satellite forecasting and real-time wave monitoring systems. Every single crane barge is equipped with dynamic positioning systems that use thrusters to maintain their exact GPS coordinates within centimeters, even in rough currents, eliminating the need for traditional anchors that could damage underwater pipelines. The concrete used in the vertical monoliths is another marvel of material science. It is a highly specialized self-consolidating concrete mixed with pozzolanic materials and corrosion-inhibiting chemical admixtures. This ensures that the concrete can flow easily into the dense forest of steel rebar without leaving any structural voids, while resisting the aggressive penetration of chloride ions from the salt water, which would otherwise rot the internal steel structures within a matter of decades. The financial and political warfare behind the project is almost as intense as the physical battle against the sea. Coordinating a $60 billion project requires the alignment of local, state, and federal agencies, alongside hundreds of private contractors and environmental advocacy groups. Every single mile of the 70-mile defensive line must undergo rigorous environmental impact assessments to ensure that the construction of the dunes and gate structures does not destroy the nesting grounds of endangered sea turtles or disrupt the migration patterns of local bird species. Millions of dollars are spent constructing artificial reefs and restoring coastal wetlands to offset the ecological footprint of the massive concrete structures. This dual focus on brute force industrial engineering and ecological preservation makes the Ike Dike one of the most complex public works projects ever attempted in the Western Hemisphere, serving as a blueprint for how modern megacities must adapt to the terrifying reality of rising global sea levels and increasingly violent weather patterns. When the entire, massive system is finally completed and activated, it will stand as the ultimate, undisputed monument to coastal defense engineering, a structure so vast, so heavy, and so expensive that it completely redefines the relationship between humanity and the sea. The final reveal of this floating fortress will show an unbroken, 70-mile line of absolute defense, cutting directly through the deep waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Visitors standing on the shores of Galveston will look out to see towering concrete gate structures and massive steel barriers rising from the waves, a silent, brutalist shield guarding the heart of a nation's energy infrastructure. When the next catastrophic storm or tsunami-level surge inevitably rolls across the dark waters of the Gulf, threatening to level cities and trigger an environmental apocalypse, the alarms will sound, the multi-megawatt hydraulic pumps will engage, and the world's largest floating gates will slowly swing shut. The roaring, violent wall of water will slam into the massive steel barrier with the force of a nuclear explosion. But the $60 billion shield will hold, completely neutralizing the fury of the ocean, absorbing the kinetic shockwaves, and proving that with enough engineering arrogance, high-tensile steel, and pure industrial power, the United States has successfully chained the sea.
As we analyze the major storm barriers, a clear engineering lineage connects the Ike Dike to the Delta Works and the Thames Barrier.
The structural integrity relies on this joint here. See it?
Yes, I see it. We need to brace it before the next shift. It's too windy out here.
Congratulations on the successful completion of the barrier system.
Thank you. It was a remarkable effort by the whole team.